I was doing poorly. I was now overweight. And it was at 46 that everything started to fall apart. Baby cereals, we can even start there, are all sugar and seed oils. And then as you move up, it gets worse and worse. I figured out that carbohydrates cause inflammation. Most people don't understand that vegetation has toxins. So finding keto completely changed my life. I started carnivore. So that was whoa, what was that? My hip pain was gone. My body felt great. And I was so focused on learning more. And it pissed me off that because they want to make money, they didn't let me keep this from my daughter. And guess what? When I figured this out, my daughter's history with food came flowing back to my memory. It was such a aha moment that I couldn't even imagine not telling everybody about this. I started doing my channel. I wanted to share this amazing information with as many people as possible.
Hello and welcome. Carrie here from Healing Humanity, the Power of a Proper Human Diet. And today I am thankful, grateful, and blessed to have Violet on the channel from At the Road to Health. Violet, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Great. Thank you so much for being here. You reached out to me a while ago and I'm like, I know who you are. I've actually been following you. I subscribed to you on YouTube maybe a year ago. I've been really busy lately, but I've caught quite a few of your videos. I think I saw one you did with Dr. Hampton. Um, Dr. Chafee. I saw one with Dr. Chafee for sure, but really enjoy your YouTube channel. And I wanted to learn more about your story. Maybe if we could start out, could you tell me a little bit about your life before you found a proper human diet or carnivore diet?
Okay. So Canadian, and my family is from the Caribbean. So what that means is that I grew up eating a lot of rice, potatoes, pasta. Canadian, so I still had pizza but much less of that because my family they're big on healthy eating, interestingly. So we had a lot of fruit, and we didn't have a lot of junk food in the house when I would say under 12, 13. But I mean, we're living in Canada. Eventually they start to get into a bit more of what everyone around them is doing. And also, I started to have money at that point in time. And so the junk food starts to be more a thing in my life. But I can honestly say that going until I was about 23, I didn't see any negatives in my health from eating the wrong way. Um, I was eating just a normal diet, standard Canadian diet, as most people would be eating out and eating cooked meals at home. I think it was when I was around 23, I started to notice joint pain. But again, I would still say that the one thing that changed when I was in my 20s was that I didn't eat as much veg as I was eating before, because when my parents were controlling my meals, right, then you have more veg on the plate. Whereas you get older, you don't need to do that. And so I would say that when I became a parent, that got even worse because now all my focus was on making sure that she's eating well and I'm working, and I'm just living this crazy hours at work because I worked for the government and they don't really care about your time. So I could be at work from 9 o'clock in the morning till sometimes getting home after 1 o'clock in the morning because there was an
Mhm.
emergency at work or whatever. So I honestly was just overworked, focused on my daughter's health more than my own. And so I started to have processed, ultra processed foods, restaurant meals more often than any person ever should. And that was only me. Like my daughter was having home cooked meals all the time. So I would say by the time I was in my 40s, I was doing poorly. I was now overweight. And it was at 46 that everything started to fall apart. Because at 46, I couldn't, my hip pain started. So my joint pain started at 23, which went from my knees, was where it started. elbows, back, neck, and then finally my hip. And when my hip hit, I couldn't step up on a curb. It was that bad. And that's when I found keto. So I don't know if you want me to keep going or if you
No,
have
please do. It's
okay.
interesting because that's, I don't know, maybe similar for a lot of carnivore folks, myself included. I found keto years ago and then eventually ended up in carnivore. So yeah, I'd love to learn more.
Okay, so when I found keto, it was because I was trying to solve my hip problem. And just if I back up a little bit, obviously thought it was because I was too heavy. At that moment, I was 80 pounds. Well, I don't know. I now know I had 80 pounds to lose. I didn't know at that time. You're thinking, oh, if I lost 50 pounds for 20 pounds, I'll be okay. Okay, so I thought, okay, I have weight to lose. That's probably why my hip's hurting. And what ended up happening is because my hip was hurting, I couldn't do a lot of exercise. So what I was doing was just a lot of walking, just hoping that I could lose some weight. I didn't lose a pound, but the walking helped. And that's what made me start to think like this isn't a strictly weight problem if walking helps my hip to feel better. And eventually with some research, and I wish I could find the article that I found, but somehow I found this article that pointed out to me that if walking helps your hip, then it's an inflammation problem.
Hmm.
And that just, how do I have an inflammation? And that started the rabbit hole where I figured out that carbohydrates cause inflammation. And then I was, well, how do I get carbohydrates out? And I was initially thinking it was just the junky carbs. The more I researched, the more I'm like, all the carbs. How do I do that? And that's how I found the keto diet. So finding keto completely changed my life. Like that was an immediate. So first of all, I lost, no, in order of events, 5 days, no, 3 days in, I had huge withdrawal. I know what withdrawal is because of the work I do, and I was struggling to understand how am I living withdrawal, but I had hot and cold. I had can't think. I had headaches like crazy, constantly thinking about food and cravings. And so I had so many symptoms of withdrawal at the time that I'm like, this is withdrawal. I got through it because I named it. I was like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting pulled back to the food, which was blowing my mind at the time. But I got through it because I'm like, I can't go back because I knew it was happening. And then after that, 2 weeks later, I noticed that I no longer was chasing any kind of junk food. Like it was just gone. The reason I even noticed that, and I can tell you it was 2 weeks, is because I was cleaning the kitchen and my daughter had a chocolate bar on the counter and I moved it and I cleaned up the kitchen and I left the kitchen. And as I was walking out of the kitchen, I saw the chocolate bar and realized that at no point had I thought I want a bite.
Hmm.
It was like something I would never do in my history of ever anything.
Right.
So like that was like, whoa, what was that? And then 3 months later, Pat asked me, my spouse asked me, um, how's your hip? And I had forgotten why I started. My hip pain was gone. My body felt great. And I was like just so focused on learning more, learning more, learning more. I didn't even remember why I had started this.
Hmm.
So, and by the way, 3 months later, I was still overweight. I got to my goal weight though rather quickly. It took me 5 months to get to my goal weight. And then another few months later, I was under my goal weight and I was not looking how I was like, not liking how I was looking. So I put 10 pounds back on,
Hmm.
which is something that most people will never believe that they will ever say.
Right.
But like, I just felt like I looked too thin. So that gets us up to 6 months, 7 months ish into keto. And or I can give you the exact dates at another point, but I don't remember exactly. But I was less than a year in, and then fast forward, I just felt so amazing. I didn't want to stop. I actually made a list, and I've been kind of adding to this list because you forget things that you lived,
Yeah.
and you don't realize that, like, well, all the things that improved just because, yeah, I initially, my only thought was, can I heal my hip? And so I didn't write them down until much later, but I have a whole list here. But the ones that stand out to me was obviously the joint pain. Like, it blows my mind today that when I started this, which is 6 years and a bit now, what I'm doing right now, which is sitting, I could not do. I work in an office and I need to sit minimum 50 minutes at a time, but sometimes I'm doing like appointment after appointment and I couldn't do this. So it was actually impacting my ability to work.
Hmm.
And I can sit and I can run. Now I run upstairs, which is like such a fun thing to be able to say again. I'm back to doing all my activities with my daughter. It's just amazing. So, but to answer your original question, fast forward, I started carnivore. So how did I get to carnivore? I started doing my channel. So I wanted to share this amazing information with as many people as possible. And in sharing what I was learning more and more, and I started to understand that we don't actually ever need to eat vegetation. And it's funny because I remember learning that in school. And like when Dr. Fung, because he was the one that kind of reminded me of that. He was talking about the fact that our body makes all the carbohydrates that we need. And I was just like, oh my gosh, I do remember learning that in school. And it just opened this door of, I don't have to keep forcing myself to eat things that I don't even like as much as the meat. And so I did a carnivore challenge a few years ago, and I was planning to do 1 month, ended up doing 2. I really liked that. And when I went back to keto, I only brought back like a very select few veg. And as time progressed, because I don't like cooking, cooking the veg was just like this one more step that I don't need. And I just kind of dropped them out of the story. And eventually I was eating avocado, olives, and a salad every other week. And the avocado and olives were happening like one time each week. So I was having 2 to 2.5 times a week vegetation. And when I interviewed Dr. Chaffee, he convinced me that maybe I should try just taking that last little bit out. So in February, dropped the avocado. I dropped basically the vegetation and the spices out of my diet. And so 6 months, well, February till now, I've been carnivore.
Wow. Do you feel different on carnivore? Is it just more convenient, or do you feel any difference between carnivore and keto?
It's so much more convenient. So I have to start there. I love the convenience of being able to just focus on meat only, meat, eggs, focus on that. And when I say meat, I'm talking about poultry and fish as well. So I'm all the meats. Um, that's the most enjoyable part to me. Do I feel different? So I feel that the improvements that I have, I only notice them if I accidentally get something wrong. And I think it's because I don't think I had a lot of damage. So on my body, I had a lot of damage,
Right.
but at the same time, maybe not as much as some other people. So I felt good, even though those veg were still there. I feel like it's only when I accidentally have something that I notice it. And I think you made a comment the other day about accidentally getting a seed oil at a restaurant. And I was like, yeah, I think it's one of those things. It's like when I when something is in my food and like I can say, oh, wait, I must have had it because the kids still eat vegetation and like so our kids are not keto or carnivore. So I think sometimes if something like I end up eating something that I'll notice it. But
Right.
most of the time, I just feel good all the time, which is, well, that's a benefit that I wouldn't give away.
Right. Did you ever fall into the keto trap with the keto snacks and keto breads and tortillas and keto ice cream and all of those things? Quick interruption. Thank you so much for watching. If you're interested in learning more about our documentary, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet, or supporting it, please visit donate.healinghumanity.movie. Our goal is to reach millions of people that are hopeless right now and sharing the examples of real people over the course of 1 year that are undertaking a proper human diet to overcome obesity, type 2 diabetes, depression, anxiety, fertility issues. We couldn't do it without you. We thank you so much. We are also selling these shirts, Healing Humanity, The Power of a Proper Human Diet. Every penny we get from those goes towards the documentary. And last, we have memberships. If you click the little join button, it's best to do it on desktop. Under any one of my YouTube videos, you can join and become a member. We have hundreds of members right now. We do members only videos. We do members only behind the scenes. You can email me as a member and I'll answer you. And every penny from that goes to support the documentary. And the last thing is we have these Redmonds portable salt shakers. These things are awesome. You can get the best salt. You can take it with you. We sell these on the website along with our water bottles and cutting boards, and every penny from all of those goes 100% towards supporting the documentary. You can also sign up for our newsletter, which is completely free. All of these links are in the description below. Thank you so much for your support. Now back to today's video.
Not keto ice cream, but at the very beginning of my journey, the idea of replacement stuff was there. And so I will say my opinion on replacement things has transitioned a lot because initially I thought, oh, this is great. And then it went to, this is the worst thing on the planet. We should never do. And now I'm kind of in the middle because I think as a transition, yes. But as a staple way of eating, I think it's a trap. And for me, I saw the trap that was happening because luckily I didn't fall into it, but I would make replacement keto bread. But because it didn't taste right, I would always end up having it and thinking, "Oh, that would have been better if it was real." And that thought made me go, "You know what? No, I am going to stop doing this because there's going to be that time where I'm thinking that so much that my worry was I might actually just have a regular piece of bread." And I
Hmm.
was like, that's not to have a hamburger, I could do lettuce leaves. And honestly, I did find doing it with lettuce leaves just as enjoyable of a meal. So like why was I killing myself to make the and it takes time to make replacement bread, by the way, doing all this extra work for nothing. So
Right.
I do feel that I used to make keto version of birthday cake, like little cakes for myself and Pat when our birthdays came around and the kids' birthdays came around and like just little replacement things so that we could be in it. And then we just decided that, well, we'll do birthdays and whatever with celebrations of a better meal. So everybody just gets a better meal, right? And we just
Yeah.
upgraded the meat we would buy, upgraded the whatever we were doing, and did it that way.
That's what we've been doing for holidays, and it's been very helpful. Like for Christmas, we did this huge carnivore feast that we really look forward to, and we're going to have some special treats that we wouldn't have had otherwise, like prime rib or something kind of bigger. What, Violet, how did you find the ketogenic diet? Like, I
So
understand the reasons, but did you watch like a YouTube video or what? How did you learn about it?
actually, I was reading. So, and I when I read the article that said that it was carbohydrates, and then it actually defined them as fruits and vegetables, and I was just like, "Well, wait a minute, what am I supposed to eat?" I started to search for okay, diets low in sugar, and I found the keto diet.
Ah, okay. And then what prompted you to decide to do YouTube videos about keto and then eventually carnivore?
I was pissed when I figured out, first of all, that all the pain that I live because for me it was pain from 23 joint pain. So all the pain that I had lived for 23 years, because I figured this out at 26, sorry, 46, 23 years of being in pain. And then the trajectory of diabetes that I knew that I was on because my family lives that. And then realizing that how many people who have already left my family because of not knowing this information, I was pissed. I was pissed that this is not known information for everybody to make their own decision. And one of the first things that I remember pointing out in my early videos, when people would come into the comments and say this is not possible and all this kind of stuff, and I remember, and that companies or the powers that be would never allow this to be known information because then they couldn't make money. I remember one of the things I pointed out was that every one of us adults knows that drinking is bad for our health. And at some point, we become adults and we try it. Every one of us adults knows that smoking is bad for our health. Some of us try it. But every one of us adults, because we know it's bad for us, keep it from our kids.
Mhm.
And it pissed me off that because they want to make money, they didn't let me keep this from my daughter. And guess what? When I figured this out, it my daughter's history with food came flowing back to my memory. She hated fruit, and she was okay with bland tasting vegetables, but didn't want any vegetables that tasted any kind of sweet. And she liked meat. And then you fast forward to, well, she needs to eat these things. So I forced them on her. And of course, at some point, she becomes addicted too. And it was so maddening to know that her whole life trajectory could have been different
Mhm.
if I knew that piece of information. And I can't change where she is, but she knows this information now. And she's aware that for her kids, that's not going to be the story. And so I think that for me, that was the biggest thing, is that how many parents, even if you're stuck in it, would make sure their kids were not stuck in it.
Right.
And for those of us who are sick and want to change, how many of us would be successful like I was? I was successful. So all these, oh, but we can't do that and that's not sustainable ideas. I just looked at myself and I'm the example. If I can do it, you can do it because I did it. And it just takes one of us to be able to know that everybody else could do it.
Right. That's awesome. How do you feel like we got to this place? It seems like once we start doing keto, carnivore, we start thinking clearer, we start seeing the world differently. How do you think we got to this place where everything's so kind of backwards? I mean, you look around in the world right now, and 9 out of 10 people have poor metabolic health. Teenagers are pre-diabetic. Depression, anxiety is just rampant. Do you think it's greed or what how did we get to a place? Because I always have trouble explaining this to people that come to my channel, and they have this social norm. Oh, it's fine, it's just the way it is kind of thing. Like, how did we get so messed up?
Okay, so I feel like it's because it is the social norm. And I think one of the things that we struggle to understand is that originally, when you have somebody who wants to accomplish a goal, and we're the goals that we have for ourselves are based on what we were raised into. Some people are motivated to make money because they want good for the world, and some people are motivated to make money because they felt deprived. And those different ways of coming at a situation impact what you're willing to do to get what you're trying to get. And I do feel that when you look at the world of, well, first it started with tobacco and that and alcohol and those scenarios. When you look at that world and the model that they had, because basically they knew these products were addictive, they knew these products were carcinogenic and health damaging, but getting money was more important than what the outcome was for people. And when you look at that model, what you realize is that they were willing to hide the truth to get the outcome. And what I think a lot of people don't know is that big tobacco bought a lot of the food companies, or bought into them. I don't know if they own them outright, but like there's a synergy that happened, I think back in the 90s or the 80s at some point. I think it was the 80s. And whenever it happened, all of a sudden the marketing was similar. Like, just lie to people, tell them what they need to hear, like tell them that it's good for you. And they actively tell us that things are the same. So the protein in plants is the same as well, first of all, no. The protein in plants, some of the protein, so some of the amino acids are the same. We call both of these things protein. However, the amino acid profile of meat and the fat composition of meat is the perfect combination for what a human needs. Versus in vegetation, first of all, every plant has a different profile. And then you're adding to that it's not in the proportions that we need, and it's missing amino acids. I don't know if there's one plant, and I believe the answer is no, that has every single amino acid that a human needs in the right proportions with the accompanying fat so that we can use it. Like it just doesn't happen. But we're told that, oh, if you're eating just vegetation, it's fine.
Right.
And we see it in people that it's not fine. So I feel like it comes out of, well, yeah, greed, but also that we've been trained to believe authority. And when these authorities are saying this is what it is, we're taking them at face value that they have our best interest at heart, and we're not challenging that information that maybe they don't have your best interest at heart.
Yeah. Yeah, you nailed it. When I think back to myself prior to this, I had so much faith that, like when you'd see a study on the news, oh, that's there for my benefit. And now I've completely realized, no, that is there because someone is trying to sell more Kellogg's cereal or a pharmaceutical. They paid millions of dollars to do this study. And like in retrospect, it seems so clear because it was so funny over the years. Eggs are going to kill you. Eggs are great for you. It was just like back and forth, one thing after another. One of the things you said before is just with the kids and the marketing and the cigarette companies, that is just insane to me. Is like cigarette companies knew that cigarettes cause cancer and they hid that, and then they said, ooh, let's market this to children because they'll be a lifelong cigarette consumer, we're going to make even more money. And it's exactly like you said, Violet, that's exactly what they're doing now with food. You go in the cereal aisle at the grocery store and it's all cartoon characters, and you get these kids hooked early from a young age. It's hard not to get kind of mad about it and fired up about it for sure. What do you say to people, Violet? So you're doing YouTube, I'm doing YouTube. One of the most popular comments I get over and over again from people is, that's great that you healed yourself, Carrie, but you would have done the exact same thing if you just cut out sugar and processed foods and ate a plant-based diet. Today's video is brought to you by ButcherBox. There is a link in the description below. They have awesome free offers. Their meat is grass-fed, grass-finished, and the reason we promote it, I'd prefer you go get meat from your local independent farmer, but a lot of people can't do that. You can go on ButcherBox's website, you can order it. They have lots of promos like get free meat for 1 year. Right now they got free ribeyes for a year, which is my favorite cut of steak. The offers change from time to time, but there's a link in the description below. If you use our link, you can get those free steaks for a year. They'll deliver them to your house. You would have done the exact same thing if you just cut out sugar and processed foods and ate a plant-based diet.
I will say something, and because I'm going to throw myself under the bus here. When I was in year 2, so I did a full year and I was in my second year, I went to a conference and I saw Sally Norton on stage and she explained the whole oxalate thing. And I was dumbfounded and I was just like, what? And I believed her. I believed her. It's not like I was looking, I was like, there's no way. And what happened was I came home and she said, almonds and chocolate. And I just made sure that those 2 things were out of my life. Like almonds and chocolate. But it was like if I just tuned out everything else she said. Because she wasn't talking about just almonds and chocolate. She said, they're the worst offender. Okay, fine. But I was still eating veg and I continued to eat veg until 6 months ago. Right. And by the way, like so I did my interview with Sally and my interview with Chafee were very close together. And when she told me that they pick avocados so early that the amount of oxalate in there is like 100 times worse than if you had picked it um, ripe. But when you look at the numbers online, they're giving you the ripe numbers, not
Mm,
the way that they've picked it. Again, she and Dr. Chafee helped me to say, yeah, I need to get out of this game. So I feel like we hear information, but then our history with food is still percolating in the background because even though I know things, I have this emotional, psychological history that goes back to being that baby that just kept eating that banana, put it in their mouth, put it in their mouth until they swallowed it. And I can't just erase that overnight. So I had to let myself look at, like, but what's my reasoning to still be eating what I'm eating? Am I doing this for good health or am I doing it because it's fun? And this is why I constantly tell people the vegetation on your plate is for fun because it is. You're putting vegetation on your plate for fun. It's not giving you anything that an extra chicken leg or another slice of another piece of fish or some other something couldn't have given you, right? You should have just eaten more meat, but you put vegetation on the plate.
mm, yeah. Did you experience anything? I always got to ask people this question because it was a big one for me. Did you ever experience brain fog and then have it kind of reversed when you did keto or carnivore?
I didn't know that I had brain fog. What's interesting to me is that I think for a living. So when I started eating keto and just realized how much quicker I was, how less forgetful I was, it was really an eye opening experience. I really do think that most people look at people who end up talking about keto online as if we are taking advantage, like if we're trying to capitalize on what keto does. But I honestly can tell you for me, it was such a matter of I can't believe that I didn't know that I could be feeling better, thinking better. Like it was such a aha moment that I couldn't even imagine not telling everybody about this. Now, you quickly realize that just because you feel amazing doesn't mean that through osmosis they're going to want to, but my bigger thing was just people need to know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like you don't know what you don't know. And you get into this normal with that brain fog and you have it for years and years and decades and decades. And then a lot of people I think just walk around and they think that's just no, that's my new normal now. That's the way it always is. And until you get out of that, you can't see it.
But
That's
even
one of the
worse,
reasons I'm so passionate about this documentary. We were doing the documentary and we are doing it for major health issues, seeing people overcome major health issues. But I'm like, if we scratch all of that and ignore all of that, the fact that the majority of humanity is walking around in that brain fog, it's almost like a mild intoxication. Like you're walking around a little drunk. You get home, you plop down on the couch, you're kind of doing the bare minimum. And people don't realize they're doing it, but what
I want to
it's
just go back to that for a second, Carrie,
yeah,
because even worse, it's not like you think it's your new normal. You don't realize that you've become brain fogged. So, like, you don't realize that a little bit, a little bit, a little bit over time, you're losing your ability to concentrate. You're losing your ability to make a good, quick decision. We can all make quick decisions, but a lot of times they're horrible. Can I
right.
make a good, quick decision? And I feel like when we're parenting, that's when you need to be on. And I look back at my daughters, like, 0 to 13, I wasn't on. And it really does, again, make me so angry. What better could I have done for her had I been thinking clearly that entire time? So I
Yeah.
don't think that people just go, oh, well, this is what it is. They don't even know that they could be doing better.
Yeah. And they'll end up going their whole lives never knowing that. One of the things I always say to my daughters, I don't know, I heard this years ago, but I really believe it firmly and I try to ingrain it in their brains is that your life is a result of the decisions you make. And it's just like you said right there, prior to doing this, I was making poor decisions. Like maybe sometimes I get a couple right on accident, but the thing I've learned interviewing so many people for this documentary or on my YouTube channel, it seems like everyone feels like they're making much wiser decisions when they're eating a proper human diet and they get out of that brain fog. People used to make fun of me like when I did my 30-day video because one of the things I said was I watched my wife and I watched Jeopardy every single day. And when I started doing carnivore, I felt like I was getting more of the answers right. And people were like, oh, you're just going to eat meat. It's going to make you smarter. But it's like, no, when you get rid of that brain fog, you can retrieve things deeper and quicker than you could have otherwise. So I think that's one of the more powerful things of eating this way is not just the decisions, but then the end result of those decisions. It's like everyone I've interviewed says, whatever my success metric is in life, it seems to improve when they're eating this way, when they're basically returning to kind of what's being natural for humans. I've heard it over and over again. We interviewed Pastor Jimmy and Annette in Austin, and they've been doing carnivore for a year. And they said their congregation, after 20 years of being pastors, their congregation doubled in size in 1 year when they started doing carnivore. I'm like, that's pretty amazing. But I hear things like that over and over again. It's
If
kind
you
of
want to
crazy.
talk, if we want to talk about success metrics, when I started keto, my daughter was 13. So her whole life, my entire goal was to like have fun with her. Like we have kids to have fun with them. So we'd bike ride, we would roller skate, and when she was like 9, I bought a longboard. So we would longboard, and I would do these activities and have to recover the next day because I have joint pain.
Hmm.
So I did it anyway because I had a child to have fun with her. Come 13, so I started my keto lifestyle, and by that summer, I started in April, and by that summer, we went tree to tree climbing. Another thing that we do all the time. We started when she was 4 years old, tree to tree
Hmm.
climbing. I climbed and kept up with her like if nothing. And like the next day, I was fine. And
Wow.
all the activities that we did that summer, I was fine. I remember pulling my longboard out, and the first ride, I was not exhausted.
Hmm.
These are things that just like that never happens. So I feel like the things that we notice them because there's such a stark difference between unhealthy and healthy.
Right. Yeah. That's one of the things that gets me frustrated too is the fact that that should be the normal. You know, you doing that should have been normal, and the majority of humanity doing those things should be normal. For us, it's like, oh, these things are extraordinary. I was so fortunate to interview Dr. Barry earlier on, and that was one of the things he said. He's like, there's nothing special there. That's how all people at that age would be doing and behaving and acting if they were just eating a proper human diet leading up to that point. It's like Dr. Barry always has the common sense stuff. I'm like, that makes sense. That's so. What One of the questions I wanted to ask you, Violet. So we're doing this documentary, Healing Humanity, the Power of a Proper Human Diet. I'm asking everyone I'm interviewing, from your perspective, do you feel that humanity needs healing?
100%. For more than just what we're eating, I think that we have been brainwashed into thinking that we can't do anything that science hasn't shown us, as if science has been before us. Like we've always done things based on what made sense, and all of a sudden we act like if there isn't a doctor's stamp of approval on it, we can't do it, which makes no sense to me. But I also think that we've been, just in our education system, taught to not think for ourselves, and that we can't try anything unless we know we're going to succeed. All these things that are just not reality. I think somebody was talking about the fact that if you wanted to be a sports any kind of sports professional, you have to practice and work and practice hard. But yet somehow we want our body to be healthy, and we don't understand that there's some sacrifices to be made, that you need to eat the right thing and not eat the wrong thing. And but this is taught. This is a learned behavior that we all need to see that we learned and unlearn it. So we need to heal from being for doubting ourselves, and we also need to learn and heal from being like pushed into categories that are artificial. These are man-made categories that label us as that, oh, if you have this disorder, you have it forever. If you have this health problem, you have it forever. And it's trapping us in our
Mhm.
our understanding of what's possible, right? Because anything is possible if I'm willing to work for it. I mean, anything. I'm not going to fly, but anything that my body can accomplish, it will accomplish if I give it the tools to accomplish.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Because we have this thing where people are diagnosed with one condition or another. For me, it was like the mental health disorder, depression, anxiety. And I always looked at it like I'm defective. There's something broken with me. And then you have sort of this crutch, and then the only alternative is to take this medication. And it doesn't treat the root cause of the problem. And it seems like we do that with a lot of things when people
Can
are
I
diagnosed with something. It's like you're broken. There's something wrong with you. And in reality, I think in almost every one of those cases, no, there's a root cause. And then when you have that, you're ignoring the root cause, which then you're just led astray for maybe years and years taking medication that's not going to fix it because you're not addressing the root cause.
can I tell you the most aggravating thing that I hear that just makes me want to scream? That doctors will say things like, "Well, you couldn't possibly eat that way forever." We can't give that as an answer because people can't possibly eat that way forever. But you're going to give me a medication that you expect me to take forever.
Right. Right.
Why can't I change my diet forever, but I can take this medication which is poisoning me forever?
Right.
And I feel like it's again, we're just so brainwashed into believing that science has all the answers. Science doesn't have answers. It's pulling information out of what we see in ourselves. And we need to understand it's the other way around. We are learning about the body and then trying to make educated guesses, but our body knows what to do.
Just to add to that, the fact that those doctors will prescribe you medication that you have to take forever after they tell me we don't know what the cause is. It's probably just a fluke. So you don't know what the cause is, but you're going to prescribe me medicine for something that you don't know what the cause is. It's so backwards. But to your point earlier, I was so trusting in those doctors. These guys went to school for a long time. They're way smarter than I am. Whatever they say goes. And ended up going on all this medication for years and years and years to the point where it's like, why didn't I just like, I'm not getting better 10 years later. Why am I still doing this sort of thing? You think if you're getting treated that you should maybe get better after a certain period of time, but it never happened for me.
So if we want to talk about why I don't trust doctors, I had one, two, three different scenarios where the doctor says to me, "Oh, well, that you're going to have to learn to live with," or "We're waiting for it to get worse so you can have the operation." And I can't remember the other one. He said something else, and it's just like all three of those are no. Why would I want that? And I feel like that those statements help me to see where, oh, the other one was we did a study on it. Like I have an obscure condition that you did a study on, that you can tell me that this medication isn't going to harm me, and it was like the medication had just come out.
Mm,
No, that's impossible. And I feel like it just helped me to see where it's almost a marketing. You say the thing that gets the person to take the thing. And it's not about, is this actually going to help Violet? And that just, again, don't trust. And not that I don't trust ever, but the situation has to be correct.
right. I question things way more now. I'm like, if I break an arm or something, I'll probably go into the doctor. Otherwise, I'm going to do a lot of research and really question sort of their motivations. Um,
And
back to
maybe
your
talk to a
YouTube channel.
carnivore or keto, or maybe talk to a carnivore or keto friendly doctor.
Yes. Yeah. I'm so thankful for the good doctors online. I've said this many times, but I don't know if I ever would have started carnivore if it wasn't for Dr. Barry, Dr. Chafee, Dr. Hampton, because I needed that reassurance because I've always put my trust in those doctors in the past. On your YouTube channel, so you went into this because you wanted to, because you were pissed off and you wanted to inspire other people to show people basically, hey, there's hope. Um, how has that gone? And have you learned other things that you didn't anticipate doing your YouTube channel?
Oh, 100%. I feel like because in order to help people to see reality, I wanted to make sure that everything that I was saying was true to the best of my ability. Because so I decided to try keto because everything that I had tried up until that point hadn't worked. So I didn't have the big, I mean, okay, what I did have was Dr. Fung saying, we make all the sugar that we need early on. I didn't really click into how true it was until later on. And that's when I started to diminish. But I had found all these doctors are saying, yeah, meat and vegetables, you don't need any of the other things, the rice, the potato, all the, don't need them, just the low glycemic. So I kind of went into it thinking, if they're wrong, can it be worse than what I'm living right now? When I wanted to talk to other people, I wasn't willing to take that kind of chance. I wanted to make sure that whatever I'm saying is good for whoever is going to listen to this video to the best of my ability. And yes, I'm talking about my experience. Yes, I'm talking about what these doctors are saying. But I also understand that we get influenced by people that we like. And so I feel I'm likable. And so therefore, when I'm going to be talking about these things and trying to help people to understand what I saw and why it worked for me and possibly could work for you, I wanted to make sure that I was giving the best possible information. So I started learning more. And the more I learned, the more I just realized that I don't even know like 10%. So I truly believe that I have so much more to learn, and my goal is to learn more because I feel like the more I understand it, the better I can explain it. And every voice matters. Um, One of the things that I realized in going through school is that you can have this a teacher after teacher after teacher explain something in math, but then this one teacher comes along and explains something that I heard 2 years ago and say it in a way that I'm like, oh my goodness, now I got it. And I feel like this is the same thing in everything we're trying to learn. My analogy might just be the analogy that makes you go, "Oh, oh, that's what's happening." And now you're able to stick to eating healthy every day because no matter what people try to tell you, every time you eat, you're building your body. Every time you eat, you're either making it healthier or making a hole. Every time. There's no getting around it. And eat is anything you put in your mouth, whether it's food, garbage, or a pill. What's it doing inside of you?
Have you learned more about gut bacteria? Sorry, this is kind of a specific question, but this really resonated when you're talking about learning more because I have so much to learn still. I'm not a doctor, I'm not a coach, I'm none of that. I'm just an individual myself. But recently I had a woman on my channel and she was talking about gut bacteria and how meat and protein feed the good gut bacteria and how carbs and starch propagate the bad gut bacteria. I started going down this rabbit hole over the last 2 weeks and I'm like, I know nothing. I know absolutely. There's like so much more going on that I haven't heard of before. Have you explored any of that
I have
gut
so
bacteria
much,
discussion?
I have so much to say on this. I'll try to keep it short. So my 2 month carnivore experiment helped me to understand something huge. And I'd heard doctors talk about it before. They said, like, basically, what you eat determines your gut bacteria. So when I did my 2 month carnivore experience, what happened was that I took all the vegetables out of my diet, all the vegetables and fruit, because olives and avocado are fruit. And what happened was when I brought them back, I was bloated again. I was gassed again. Like I ran to the bathroom with diarrhea. Like all the things happened because I brought them back. And so the first thing that I figured out is that it doesn't take years to change your microbiome, your gut bacteria. In 2 months, I changed mine. So the other thing that I figured out is that going back to what the doctors say is that whatever you eat is what's going to determine your gut bacteria. There isn't good versus bad in that sense. It's what you eat determines what's in there. What's in there is going to feed on whatever you eat. And for me, what that meant is as long as I eat what's healthiest, my body is going to have what's healthiest. My gut bacteria will be healthy. And that's really the way that I'm looking at it right now. I'm not worried that I'm not eating something that I don't need to feed anything other than me. Going back to science, 5,000 years ago, we didn't have scientists telling us what to eat. We
Right.
ate what we ate, and our gut did what it was going to do. And I still believe that that's the truth today. I eat what I eat. And this is when I was eating ultra processed foods 3 times a day, my gut bacteria was working on that. And I'm eating only meat today with salt as the spice. My body's functioning on that. And I feel fine. And by the way, I felt fine back when I didn't know I could feel better.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I was exploring the gut bacteria a little bit more just from my history, and I was thinking about all the times I was prescribed antibiotics when I'm like, I had a sniffly nose or maybe the flu or something. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, what was I potentially doing to that? But then I was one of the things I did a video. I'm making it live later today, but I don't know if the doctors have talked about this. It's something I'm in just full on research mode, learning more. But I wonder what like pesticides and glyphosate are doing to people's gut bacteria. It's death, like it's liquid death. You think that it would do something because you always hear people say, "Well, just eat a plant-based diet. If there's some pesticides and you get it, it's the dose that matters. If it's just a little dose, well, of course, like a cigarette. If you smoke a cigarette, you're not going to fall over and die." If you get a little bit of pesticides, you're not going to fall over and die. But I wonder if we're not looking at that closely enough in terms of what it's doing to our gut bacteria and the downstream effects of it. Um, there's so much to learn still. It's really kind of interesting, but
And I do think that that's going back to what we were saying earlier about how we've been educated. This idea that if I do it right now and there's no negative outcome, then it has to be good. Well,
right,
that's not reality. That's not reality. And that's not reality for anything. If I insult you right now and you don't say anything, it doesn't mean that my behavior was good. It just means that you didn't say anything. Right. So I feel like we have to stop looking at it from this lens of as long as I don't get a negative outcome immediately, I'm going to keep doing it until I get this negative outcome because that's what they bank on. One of the things that is scary is that these companies don't need any one of us to eat their stuff because so many of us are eating their stuff. They can wait for us to cycle in and out. Oh, you're going to the gym this month? That's okay. You'll be back next month. Oh, you're
yeah,
you're, you're trying keto this month? You're not going to make it. You'll be back next month. And I feel like we need to wake up and see that that's what they're doing. They sell these things dirt cheap so that it's more appealing than the real food, meat, fish, poultry, eggs in the grocery store that cost a lot more. We think we're getting a deal. We're not getting a deal. We're falling for the lure, right? We're falling for it, and we need
right,
to stop falling for it.
yeah. Oh my goodness. I did that yo-yo dieting so many times throughout the years. For me, one of my biggest issues was sugar. I'm just totally, I can't have any little bit of carbs or anything that turns into sugar. What are your thoughts on sugar? Is it an addictive drug that we've normalized or is that too extreme?
It's an addictive drug that companies have normalized. We don't even know that we're having it. Can you imagine if you lived in a world where from the time that you were born, you were just drinking vodka? You wouldn't know that that was weird. You would
Right.
just be on it and addicted all the time. And that's what's happening to us. We don't know. Baby formula and children's cereals, so baby cereals, we can even start there, are all sugar and seed oils. And then as you move up, it just it gets worse and worse. So our children going after those pretty boxes, but then the adult cereals aren't any better. And we don't understand that all of that is a game they're playing because it's cheaper to feed us that and it makes them more money. We don't understand it because this is just how it's always been. But has it really? And it
Right.
hasn't always been like this. This is from 1950 something. I did a video on this recently. 1950 something is when this started. This whole
Right.
cereal thing. And it wasn't even started because of our health. It was started to end men lusting after women. Like, why is that a reason for us to eat grains? It doesn't make any sense. And yet it's what we've been doing, what we've allowed to continue. Because once we knew that that was the reason, that should have been thrown away. But yet we're still doing
Mm,
it.
right. Yeah, and the vodka example, and then you're giving it to children, and they go to grandma's house, and every single holiday, more vodka, and it's just normalized. Yeah, it's uh, to your point too. Like since the '50s or whenever it was, I think as individuals we're so myopic. We just look at this is the way it's always been. But then if you look at the grand scheme of humanity and the standard American diet, it's just a flash in the pan, a blink of an eye, it's just barely any time at all. But for us as individuals, like, oh, that's the way it's always been. But really, really hasn't been. Um, what what advice would you give to someone that's suffering right now, or they're hopeless, or they have depression, or they have hip issues or arthritis like you had, um, but they think this is just crazy. You can't just eat only meat. Like, how do you approach that?
This is a hard one because people are defensive and they don't want to be told that they're making a mistake. And I feel like the first thing is helping people to understand that we are all in the same situation. We thought that this was the healthy way to eat. And so you believe that vegetables are absolutely necessary. And I get that. But we also need to understand that our body makes all the sugar that we need is a real thing. So it's kind of doing that back and forth of like, if my body makes all the sugar that I need, then what else am I getting from this vegetation? Most people don't understand that vegetation has toxins. We call them phytonutrients, but I don't know if you've ever actually done a search on Google, what's a phytonutrient? Because you'll find out that phytonutrient and phytochemical are two words for the same thing. So why would we call it phytonutrient? Well, because it sounds better. Not that it's
Mm,
actually a nutrient. It's a chemical. And so now what are phytochemicals? Well, they're chemicals that are damaging to the body. But we take this thing that's lumped together, phytochemicals, we call it something nice, and then we convince people that they need it. And I feel like that's part of what people need to understand. But you need to walk them slowly towards that information and help them see that you're eating this thing to give yourself good health that's actually giving you poor health. And the other thing that I help people to try to look at it from a perspective of, if you were to decide to try this and you felt better, pay attention to feeling better. I feel like the mistake that people make is that they do it for weight loss.
mm,
And anything we do for weight loss, we can do for a period of time because we know we're not going to stick with it. It's not the goal to do it forever. It's the goal to do it for now. And I try to help people to focus on the fact that either you're doing it for good health, terrific. If you're going to do it for weight loss, I don't encourage people to start this for weight loss because you won't stick with it. And so what ends up happening is that as soon as you hit that weight, you treat it like any other diet. But now I've just erased my fear of fat. And now we're doing high fat, high carb, and that is a recipe for disaster. So I'm really focused on people understanding what you're getting into when you start a keto or carnivore lifestyle. That's why I say, join the community, it's a wellness squad. because at least in there, you're going to have people to talk to and like just be able to have like-minded people trying to do the same thing that you're doing, and you're not all by yourself, because many times we're the only person in the house that is doing this. And if unless you, I mean, I was lucky because Pat joined me like maybe 8 months later, but a lot of people do it for years on their own.
Right.
I just had such good outcome. He couldn't deny what he was seeing.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to be more cynical with the coaching and the groups. I'm like, you just eat meat. What's so hard? But I was so wrong on that. We're living in a world where we're kind of the weird ones out. And it's so nice to have a community, to have people to talk to bounce ideas off of, to keep you kind of going. So I'm a big advocate for that for sure. Um, wow, I can't believe we've already been talking for an hour, Violet. This has been great. So you're at the road to health. Can you shout out anything else, or where can people find you otherwise?
I really at the road to health and wellnesssquad.org. Those are the two places. At wellnesssquad.org, I'm in the I'm sorry, I'm in the community, so I'm actually talking to people. So if you want to have a real conversation with me, that's probably a place to be.
That is wonderful. I will have links in the description for both of those below. And thank you so much, Violet. This has been great. You have an open invite. I'd love to do this again sometime. Hour went by quickly.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thanks.